In 1999, shopping in America was a pleasure. In 2025, it's a survival game. When Amazon delivers before you even have time to regret it, traditional stores are left with only one option: regret. Walking through the neighborhoods, you'll see store closing signs sprouting up like weeds on memories. Walgreens, Macy's, Rite Aid, each brand is a chapter in the history of the United States. And now, each chapter is being torn apart by inflation, debt, and new consumer habits. This isn't just a story about retail, it's a story about America transforming, lonely and expensive. When pharmacies, supermarkets, and shopping malls fall, they don't just lose revenue, they also take away the collective memory of a nation that once believed everything was for sale. In this video, let's go through 15 collapsing giants to understand why America, for the first time, no longer wants to buy. Are you ready to embark on this journey? Let's move on to the first name. Have you noticed that every time you drive past Walgreens, the red sign is still lit, but the inside is completely empty, like a pharmacy of memories? In 2025, Walgreens announced it would close 200 stores, with nearly 500 disappearing this year alone. It's not just a number, it's hundreds of neighborhoods losing their familiar stops, where people used to buy vitamin boxes, candy jars, and sometimes a little bit of peace of mind. Walgreens was once a symbol of modern America, a pharmacy on every corner, open 24/7, with someone always smiling and asking, "How are you today?" But then, Americans changed. They order medicine through an app, have video consultations, and receive deliveries by drone. And Walgreens is still selling greeting cards and snacks. A store that was once a symbol of community healthcare is now just its own prescription. High costs, low revenue, and customers with diminished doses of trust. Walgreens is struggling with enormous rent costs, hundreds of lawsuits related to pain medication, and an outdated operating model. Adding to that is shrink, retail crime that causes billions of dollars to disappear from shelves each year. When you have to hire extra security to sell a bottle of Tylenol, you know the illness is no longer in the company's immune system, but in the ailing retail system itself. One analyst jokingly said, "Walgreens is no longer a drugstore, but a snack store, with a pharmacy counter added for fun." The statement sounds sarcastic, but it's actually eerily accurate. For many communities, especially seniors in rural areas, Walgreens is the only store within a few miles. When it closes, people don't just lose a place to buy medicine, they lose a cornerstone of their lives. Losing Walgreens is like losing the neighborhood's alarm clock, quieter but also lonelier. Is this just the beginning of the downfall of corner America, those familiar stores we once believed would always be there? Or simply, this is natural evolution? Those who are slow to innovate are replaced, just like humans left the pharmacy counter to enter the technological age. No matter which side you're on, one thing is certain. If even an icon like Walgreens is shaken, no brand is immune to the times. And you, when was the last time you walked into a Walgreens to buy medicine? Or just to remember how familiar America used to be? Next, let's see how much the dollar empire, Family Dollar, is paying for its dream of selling cheap to everyone. If Walgreens is the painkiller that wore off, then Family Dollar is the candy that's melted. In 2025, Dollar Tree, the parent company, announced the sale of its entire Family Dollar segment and the closure of at least 600 stores in the first half of the year. A brand that once opened in every town, from dusty Texas to quiet Ohio, now displays a sign that reads, "Everything must go," a phrase that is both bitter and literal. Family Dollar was once a haven for middle-class and working-class Americans, a place where $1 could buy a bottle of shampoo, a box of food, or a toy for a child. But now, $1 isn't enough to buy cheap illusions anymore. Inflation erodes the dream that everything is cheap. The costs of rent, transportation, insurance, etc., are all escalating. So, the sale-off for everyone became a sell-off for investors. You see, America in 2025 won't be short of poor people. Just places for them to survive on a few crumpled bills. The irony is that Family Dollar didn't die because they lost customers, but because their customers were poorer than they predicted. Low-income consumers, the backbone of this system, are struggling with gas prices, rent, and maxed-out credit cards. They no longer stop to buy cheap bottles of water, but calculate every cent on Amazon or Temu. An expert once said, "Family Dollar sells cheap, but the economy sells even cheaper." The saying sounds like a joke, but it's actually an obituary. In many poor areas, Family Dollar is the only source of essential goods. When the store closes, people have to drive 20-30 miles just to buy milk or toilet paper. Neighborhoods without a Family Dollar are like a heart that stops beating. They don't disappear immediately, but they grow colder over time. Family Dollar once thrived on the poor, but died because of America, which made the poor too poor to spend money. A vicious cycle, gentle yet bitter. Perhaps this is not just the collapse of a retail chain, but a sign of a society losing its ability to regain trust. Do you remember the last time you stepped into Family Dollar? You might just be buying a bottle of dish soap. But in reality, you're buying a piece of a memory of a time when America still believed that everything was cheap for everyone. And if you think craft stores are still safe, just wait until you see how Joanne is sewing her own morning cloth. If Family Dollar is where people buy cheap things to get by, then Joanne is where they used to buy a little inspiration to live a meaningful life. However, by 2025, America's DIY paradise, which once captivated millions with its rolls of fabric and creative ideas, officially declared bankruptcy and closed its entire system. The company once said, "We help people create what they love." Now they are creating their own death sentence. During the COVID period, Joanne was the unsung hero. Everyone is at home. Everyone wants to sew masks, knit blankets, and embroider pillows. Revenue soared, and the CEO beamed with a bright smile. But then the DIY trend cooled down, while they continued to produce as if the pandemic would last forever. As Americans returned to the office, the mountain of inventory remained as high as old beliefs, and Joanne suddenly became a victim of the very boom she had created. The store is full of fabrics, but empty of customers. There are more fabric cutters than customers who need sewing. A soft and painful paradox. Joanne didn't just lose because of inventory, but also because of changes in consumer sentiment. Americans no longer buy things to make themselves. They buy ready-made items with fast delivery and easy returns. Handmade crafts were once a symbol of freedom, now replaced by the click of "add to cart." In other words, Joanne is selling to a generation that no longer has time to dream. An old customer wrote, "I used to go to Joanne for inspiration. Now I only see 80% off and the disappointing smell of candle wax." A single comment speaks volumes about the brand situation. Joanne is not just a place to buy fabric. It's part of our collective memory, where mothers and daughters once chose thread colors, where grandmothers taught their grandchildren to sew clothes. Now hundreds of small commercial districts across the United States are facing another void, not just on the map, but in the hearts of the people. Every time a store closes, another thread of memory is severed. Perhaps the saddest thing isn't that Joanne went bankrupt, but that America is no longer a place for people who want to do what they love on their own. And if Joanne falls due to inventory, the seller of many cheap items, Big Lots is suffering from a worse disease, selling a lot, but losing everything. If Joanne is where Americans buy a little inspiration, then Big Lots is where they buy a little hope. The simple hope that, if you just look hard enough, you can still buy a chair, a TV, or a new set of sheets, at a price that won't empty your wallet. But in 2025, Big Lots officially went bankrupt, urgently selling 200 or 400 stores, with the remaining stores awaiting liquidation. The scene was just like an emergency room. The business was dying, desperately trying to sell off its organs to eke out a few last breaths. Big Lots once prided itself on being a discount haven, where every aisle was a treasure hunt. But in an exhausted economy, even bargains become expensive. Warehouse rental prices are rising, interest costs are ballooning, and consumers are cutting spending the most in over a decade. They're no longer interested in hot deals. They just want to pay the electricity bill. A commentator once joked, "Big Lots sells everything except what they really need. Customers with money." It sounds like laughter, but it's a bitter laugh, like the end-of-month bills. Big Lots once thought the more inventory they stocked, the lower they could price, and the more they could win. But when interest rates rise and purchasing power plummets, a full warehouse feels more like a deep hole swallowing capital. Inventory became a monument to excessive optimism. The company tried to sell at a discount, but buyers still didn't dare to open their wallets. The result? A discount chain became a symbol of America's era. There was no money left even for the cheapest items. In many small towns, Big Lots is the last bright spot on a street that is slowly dying. Now store closing signs are hanging every place. Each sign is the end of dozens of jobs and hundreds of lives in the surrounding area. Some people jokingly say, "Big Lots closed," and the whole neighborhood lost its place to buy toilet paper and a reason to go outside. It sounds funny, but it's actually a silent tragedy. Big Lots doesn't just sell merchandise. They sell the feeling that everything will be okay. Now that phrase is also being discounted by 90%. Their downfall wasn't just a business matter. It was a sign of a society weary of its own consumerist beliefs. Perhaps America isn't getting poorer because it's running out of money, but because it's running out of hope that money will make things better. And while Big Lots is selling off every piece of its reputation, on the other side, the former symbol of American luxury, Macy's, is also having to sell its past to buy its future. There was a time when Macy's was the dream destination for every American family. On holidays, people come to Macy's to see the window displays as if they were watching fireworks. Buying a shirt there is like buying the feeling of living the American dream. And now, in 2025, Macy's is closing 66 stores and selling off a series of iconic real estate assets. Macy's Union Square store, a San Francisco landmark, is also being redeveloped. A phrase that sounds grand, but everyone understands the true meaning. We can no longer sustain ourselves. The name Macy's was once synonymous with class and hope. But in a country where the middle class is disappearing and Amazon delivers in hours, that pride is outdated. People no longer go to Macy's to buy an experience. They just want something cheaper, faster, and more convenient. And so, the empire that once spanned America now shrinks like a curtain of leftover fabric, fragile, faded, but still clinging to a semblance of its former grandeur. A customer once said, "In the old days, Macy's was where I bought my Christmas gifts. Now it's just a place I pass by to remember the time I used to have money." A funny comment, but it hurts like it's real. Walk into Macy's now, and you'll see more security guards than customers. The lights were still on, but the shopkeeper's eyes were lost. The store is vast and the merchandise is overflowing, but the feeling is empty. Macy's exists as a museum of American memories, where people stroll to reminisce rather than to shop. The decline of Macy's is not just the failure of a brand, but a reminder that class cannot be measured by a credit card when the entire economy is living on debt. Macy's was once a symbol of America's belief in the future. And now they are just a mirror reflecting an America living on memories. And if the mall is the graveyard of retail, then in the next room, Rite Aid, the pharmaceutical giant, is on oxygen, waiting for the day it declares resuscitation efforts a failure. Following the 2024 bankruptcy, Rite Aid is still closing hundreds of stores, cutting staff, and shrinking its network in 2025. And with each store that disappears, another small community in America loses its last corner drugstore that's still lit up. Rite Aid used to be a familiar place, where you bought cold medicine, boxes of Band-Aids, or last-minute birthday cards. Now stepping inside, you see more empty shelves than customers, and the fluorescent lights illuminate the space like a silent vigil. Overwhelming debt, declining revenue, and widespread shrinkage. This system is like a patient being fed intravenously with bills. A former employee once said, "We give medicine to others, but no one gives medicine to the company." It's both funny and painful because it's true down to every word. Hundreds of rural communities, especially in the Midwest and South, now have to drive 20-30 miles just to buy cold medicine or baby formula. For the elderly, that's not just inconvenient, it's dangerous. Rite Aid's collapse wasn't just due to weak business, but because of an America that is gradually losing its ability to care for its own communities. Those stores didn't just sell medicine, they also sold the feeling that someone cared about your health. The US retail pharmacy industry is chronically ill. High operating costs, low drug profit margins, and pressure from online retailers. Amazon sells medicine cheaper and faster, while Rite Aid is still struggling with prescription pads and promotional banners. They didn't have time to turn things around, and now they're changing addresses, from the pharmacy to the bankruptcy court. Perhaps Rite Aid is just a victim, not the perpetrator. And then Americans should ask themselves, are we living in a healthcare economy, or just an economy of prescriptions and counting down the days? And if you think the medical industry is painful enough, look at fashion, where brands that once dressed America stylishly are now changing beyond belief. And that's the story of Express. Once an iconic brand for young American office workers, where men bought their first interview shirt and women chose their first date dress, Express has now filed for bankruptcy and closed over 100 stores. A brand born to talk about speed is now leaving the stage in slow motion. As the world shifts to Shein, Temu, and Zara, Express is still stuck with the 2015 blazer and the same old buy two get one free promotion. The market changes with every click, while they are as slow as the Wi-Fi network in a small office in Ohio. The company placed its trust in the shopping center, where customer traffic decreased by 40% in just a few years, and considered online channels only as secondary. Result: Express was left behind by the very speed of the times. A commentator once said, "Express no longer sells fashion, they sell the past folded into a discount bin." It sounds sarcastic, but every word is true. Fashion used to be how Americans expressed their status. Now, with inflation, gas prices, and credit card debt, people are choosing comfort over style. Cheap t-shirts on Amazon are replacing shirts in droves. The once luxurious Express stores now look like abandoned stages. The mannequins still smile, but their eyes are lifeless. Express isn't cheap enough to compete with fast fashion, nor is it high-end enough to retain existing customers. They are stuck between two worlds, just like the American middle class now. They still want to live beautifully, but their wallets are empty. And that's the real tragedy. A brand that reflects the very stage of the country where it was born. A time when appearances were more important than wallets. Now, the wallet is empty, and the appearance can't be saved either. Perhaps the most painful thing isn't that Express went bankrupt, but that the image of Americans gradually abandoning their clothing habits to feel like they still have some control over something. And if clothing was once the final layer of confidence, then at the dinner table, chains like Red Lobster and Cracker Barrel are showing that even the American comfort meal is slowly cooling down. If Express is the story of Americans wearing less, then Red Lobster and Cracker Barrel are the story of Americans eating less. It's not because they lost weight, it's because they lost affordability. In 2025, Red Lobster closed nearly 90 restaurants and put most of its properties up for sale, while Cracker Barrel continued to report losses for multiple consecutive quarters, with customer traffic down nearly 20% compared to 2019. Two names that were once symbols of the American meal, one side with golden, butter-covered seafood, the other with barbecue, buttermilk biscuits, and memories, are now drowning in debt, silence, and the smell of old butter. There was a time when Red Lobster was where middle-class Americans took their families for birthday dinners, where lobster symbolized a small success in life. And Cracker Barrel is a rest stop on a long journey, a place with hot meals and a sense of peaceful American life. Now, both chains are facing a cold reality. Soaring raw material costs, inflation driving up menu prices, and customers not returning. A customer wrote online, "I used to eat at Red Lobster to celebrate promotions. Now I'm eating instant noodles to celebrate and the work." It sounds funny, but that's the reality of America after the bills and the fatigue. These restaurants don't just sell food, they sell the habit of meeting, sharing, and gathering together. But in today's society, people work remotely, eat quickly at home, or order food through apps. Eating together is no longer an essential part of culture. It's a modern luxury. And when communal meals disappear, restaurants like Cracker Barrel also lose their reason for existing. Red Lobster and Cracker Barrel were once the glue of middle-class America. The smell of butter, barbecue, wheat coffee, and stories around the table. Now, as those places turn off their lights, America is not only losing a few brands, but also the warmth that once made them feel like they were still a community. And as the meal grew cold, in the opposite corner, the Best Buy technology sanctuary was also dying, because of the very technology that once made it great. There was a time when Best Buy was the mecca for American men. On weekends, they take their child to see the new TV, touch the camera, listen to the speakers, and then leave happy. You don't necessarily have to buy it. Just smelling the scent of new technology is enough to feel like your life is still progressing. But in 2025, those sanctuaries are closing down en masse. Best Buy cut thousands of jobs, downsized its physical space, and watched its revenue plummet like the Wi-Fi signal at a cheap motel. Today, most customers go to Best Buy to see the real products and then order them on Amazon. They tested the screen, asked for advice, scanned the barcode, and then left with a simple, "Thank you, I'll think about it." Best Buy used to thrive on experience. Touch, listen, see, compare. But the new generation of consumers doesn't need to touch, just click. They trust star ratings more than the advice of employees. And as trust shifts from humans to algorithms, physical stores become a burden. Rent, warranty, and personnel costs all become luxuries in the era of fast buying, fast shipping, and fast regret. The story of Best Buy is a tragedy of our time. The smart lose because the system is smarter. Amazon knows what you want before you do, while Best Buy is still waiting for you to drive there. They were once symbols of an era that believed in human experience, but now they have become victims of the very progress they nurtured. And as the tech giants falter, look to traditional supermarkets, Kroger and Safeway, where affordability is slowly becoming the most luxurious thing in America. After Best Buy lost customers to Amazon, we return to the supermarket, where Kroger and Safeway are trying to hold on to the last vestiges of old-fashioned American consumerism. The two giants once dreamed of creating a food empire to compete with Walmart and Amazon Fresh. But in 2020 and 2025, that dream melted like ice in a cola. The Kroger-Albertsons merger was blocked by the government, and hundreds of stores were forced to be sold or closed to avoid a monopoly. It sounds heroic. Two giants joining forces to optimize prices for customers. But consumers know better. Optimizing in America often means reducing staff, raising prices, and limiting choices. At that point, people didn't care if you were named Kroger, Safeway, or Super Mega Market. They just looked at the bill. And the bills, though labeled as consolidated for the customer, still increase steadily each week. Kroger and Safeway are both suffering from the same ailment: high operating costs, razor-thin profit margins, and rapidly increasing shrink. Adding to prolonged inflation, middle-class Americans are starting to cut back, not on luxury items, but on everyday meals. A cart that was once full is now only half full. Supermarket chains are trying to blame supply chain costs, but people understand. Every reason is coming out of their pockets. Kroger and Safeway used to be the starting point for every evening. The yellow lights, the stream of people buying groceries to cook dinner. Now, Americans don't have the time or money for that. They eat quickly, buy cheaply, and count every coupon. Familiar scene. A customer stands in the supermarket, looks at the price of beef, and whispers, "I guess it's instant noodles again tonight." Perhaps the scariest thing isn't the supermarket going bankrupt, but a nation that once prided itself on abundance, now having to learn to make do. So, from Walgreens, Family Dollar, Joanne, to Macy's, Best Buy, Kroger, we've just journeyed through an America that's changing on every street corner, every sign, every habit. A nation that once believed everything could be bought now has to relearn how to live without needing too much to feel fulfilled. Perhaps this isn't just a story about economics or retail, but a story about ourselves. Regarding values that were once considered solid, beliefs, habits, a sense of belonging, they are now gradually falling out of the basket. What do you think? Is this a natural cycle of economic evolution, or a sign that the American dream is fading? Please leave a comment. I'd love to hear your perspective. If you find this video thought-provoking, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell to delve deeper together into the stories behind America today. All information and data in this video are compiled from public reports and sources for the purpose of analysis and knowledge sharing only. It is not intended as investment advice or personal attack. Thank you for watching until the end. See you on the next journey.